Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, the Pioneer's Edge. He was looking at the stars through the big window when his communications officer spoke up. "Sir, we have incoming ships," Amy Johnson said from her station. Her voice was calm, but Jake could hear the worry in it. "How many?" Jake asked, walking over to look at her screen. 200 ships, sir. Maybe more. They're big ones." Jake felt his stomach drop. His small patrol fleet had only 12 ships. They were out here, doing routine checks on the border. Systems when this happened. He never expected to run into a full enemy fleet. "Wake up, everyone," he ordered. "Battle stations. Get me Captain Brooks and Lieutenant Carter on the com." Ryan Brooks appeared on the main screen first. He was the tactical officer and Jake's best friend since training school. "Jake, my sensors are going crazy. What are we looking at?" "Big trouble," Jake said. "Lisa, you there?" Navigation Officer Lisa Carter's face joined the screen. "Present, sir. I've got our position locked. We can jump out in 30 seconds if needed." "Good. Keep that option ready." Jake turned back to Amy. "Any messages from the incoming fleet?" "Yes, sir. They're demanding we surrender immediately. They say resistance is useless." Jake almost laughed. Almost. Put them on screen. The main display changed to show a large reptilian face. The creature had green scales, yellow eyes, and sharp teeth. It looked angry and proud at the same time. "I am Admiral Kethfer of the Zephyrian Empire," the alien said in perfect English. "You will surrender your ships and submit to our rule. Your primitive weapons cannot harm us." Jake stepped forward. "This is Commander Morrison of the Earth Defense Force. You are in human space. Leave now or face the consequences." The alien made a sound that might have been laughter. "Human space? You control nothing, primitive creature. We have conquered 47 star systems. Your 12 tiny ships are nothing against our mighty fleet." "Maybe," Jake said. "But we won't go down without a fight. Then you will die like the others who opposed us." The alien cut the transmission. Jake looked around his bridge. Amy was checking her equipment. Lisa was preparing jump coordinates. Ryan was loading weapons. Nobody looked scared. They all looked ready. "Sir," Ryan said, "their ships are old designs, big and slow. Our ships are faster and more flexible. What's the plan?" Lisa asked. Jake studied the tactical display. The enemy ships were moving in. A straight line toward them. It was a classic formation for overwhelming force. But it had weaknesses. "We're not going to fight them head-on," Jake said. "We're going to hit and run. Use our speed. Hit them from different angles and disappear before they can respond." "That's risky," Amy said. "If they catch us... They won't catch us if we're smart about it." Jake activated the fleet comm. "All ships, this is Morrison. We're going to show these lizards what human tactics look like." The 12 human ships spread out in a wide formation. They were small compared to the enemy fleet, but they moved like dancers, while the alien ships moved like freight trains. Jake gave the order to attack. The human ships swooped in from 3 directions at once. Their weapons fired precise shots at the enemy ships' weak points. The aliens tried to return fire, but the human ships were already gone, moving to new positions. "Direct hit on their lead ship," Ryan reported. "Their shields are down. Keep moving," Jake ordered. "Don't let them get a lock on us." The battle turned into a deadly game of tag. The human ships would appear, strike, and vanish before the aliens could respond. The enemy's big guns were useless against targets that wouldn't stay still. Admiral Kethfer's voice came over the comm again. "Stand still and fight like warriors." "This is how humans fight," Jake replied. "Don't like it? Go home." For 3 hours, the small human fleet danced around the massive alien force. They targeted engines, weapons, and command centers. The aliens grew more and more frustrated as their ships were picked apart. "Sir," Amy reported, "we've destroyed 43 enemy ships and damaged twice that many." Jake was amazed. They had taken out nearly half the enemy fleet and only lost 2 of their own ships. But they were running low on ammunition and fuel. Time to go, he decided. "All ships, prepare for jump. You run like cowards." Admiral Kethfor screamed over the comm. "We run like professionals," Jake replied. "This was just a warm-up. Wait until you meet our real fleet." The human ships jumped to hyperspace, leaving the damaged alien fleet behind. Jake sat in his command chair, breathing hard. They had won, but barely. "Sir," Lisa said, "should I report?" "This to command?" "Oh, yes," Jake said. "Tell them the Zephyrians are coming. And tell them what we learned today." "What did we learn?" Amy asked. Jake smiled. "We learned that these aliens are used to easy victories. They don't know how to fight an enemy that thinks. That's going to be their downfall." As the pioneers Edge flew toward human space, Jake looked at the stars again. The aliens thought they had fought the human military today. They had no idea they had only fought a patrol unit. The real Earth Defense Force was much larger and much more dangerous. War was just beginning, and the aliens had no idea what they were up against. Supreme Admiral Vexther slammed his clawed hand on the metal table. The sound echoed through the command room of his flagship, Dominion's Wrath. Around him, his officers stood silent and afraid. "Explain this to me again," he growled, his yellow eyes burning with anger. "How did 12 tiny ships destroy 43 of our vessels?" General Thakson, his military advisor, looked uncomfortable. "Sir, the humans used unusual tactics. They didn't fight in formation. They attacked from all sides and disappeared before we could respond." "Impossible," Vexter hissed. "Our weapons are superior. Our ships are bigger and stronger. How can primitives defeat us?" Intelligence Chief Mordique stepped forward. "Sir, perhaps the humans are not as primitive as we thought. Their ships are fast and their pilots are skilled." Vexter's tail lashed behind him. "Skilled? They ran away. What kind of skill is that?" "The kind that wins battles," Mordic said quietly. The Supreme Admiral turned his angry gaze on his intelligence chief. "Are you defending them?" "No, sir. I'm trying to understand them. If we don't learn from this defeat, we'll make the same mistakes again." Before Vexter could respond, an aide rushed into the room. "Sir, we have reports of another human attack. They hit our supply depot in the Kepler system." "What? How many?" "Ships? Only 8, sir. But they destroyed everything. Our fuel supplies, our ammunition, our food stores, everything." Vexter felt his anger grow even hotter. 8 ships? 8 ships did this much damage? The aide nodded nervously. "Yes. Sir, they used some kind of new weapon. Very precise. They hit exactly what they wanted to hit and nothing else." Captain Ben Taylor smiled as he watched the enemy supply depot burn. His ship, the Defiant Star, floated safely in space with 7 other human vessels. The attack had taken only 20 minutes. "Nice work, everyone," he said into his comm. "Clean strike. No civilian casualties." His engineer, Kate Phillips, looked up from her station. "Sir, we used very little ammunition. These new targeting systems are amazing. The aliens don't know what hit them," added Sam Martinez, the weapons officer. "Their defenses were designed for big fleet battles, not precision strikes." Ben nodded. The human military had learned a lot from the first encounter with the Zephyrians. The aliens fought like they were still in the old days, with massive formations and overwhelming force. But modern warfare was about precision, speed, and intelligence. "Kate, how long until the enemy reinforcements arrive?" he asked. 30 minutes, sir. Maybe less. Then we better get out of here. Set course for the rally point. As the human ships jumped to hyperspace, Ben thought about the war. The Zephyrians were strong, but they were also predictable. They always did the same thing: gather a huge fleet and attack head-on. It worked against species that fought the same way. But humans had learned to fight differently. Back on the Dominion's Wrath, Vexter was reading intelligence reports. The humans had hit supply depots, communication stations, and patrol bases all along the border. Small groups of ships were causing massive damage to the Empire's war effort. "Sir," Mordick said, "I've been analyzing the human communications we intercepted. What did you find?" "They keep talking about advanced scouts and preliminary operations. They mentioned something called forward reconnaissance units." Vexter's eyes narrowed. "What does that mean?" "I think it means the forces we've been fighting are not their main military. They might be just scouts, checking our defenses." The Supreme Admiral laughed. "Ridiculous. If these are their scouts, their main force can't be much bigger. These primitives don't have the resources to build a large fleet." "But sir, what if we're wrong? What if these small forces are just the beginning?" Vexter stood up to his full height. "Then we'll crush them with overwhelming force. Prepare 5,000 ships for invasion. We'll show these humans what real power looks like." In another part of the ship, Dr. Elena Rodriguez sat in a prison cell. She was a human xenobiologist who had been captured during the first battle. The Zephyrians wanted to question her about human society and military strength. 2 guards brought her to an interrogation room. Admiral Cathfor was waiting for her. His scales were darker now, and he looked tired. "Sit down, human," he ordered. Elena sat calmly. She had been trained for this situation. "What do you want to know?" "Your military strength. How many ships do you have? How many soldiers?" Elena smiled. "Why would I tell you that?" "Because if you don't, we'll destroy every human world we find." "You're already trying to do that," Elena said, "so threatening me won't work." Cathfor leaned forward. "Your small fleets have been lucky so far, but luck runs out. When our main invasion force arrives, your resistance will crumble." "Your main invasion force?" Elena tried to sound worried. "How many ships?" 5,000 of our finest vessels. More than enough to sweep away your pathetic defenses." Elena pretended to look shocked. 5,000? That's a lot. Finally, you understand. Your advanced scouts and reconnaissance units won't save you then. Elena hid her smile. The alien had just revealed important information. They thought the human forces they'd been fighting were advanced scouts. They had no idea those were just patrol units and local militias. "I suppose you're right," she said sadly. "Our forward units can't stand against such a force." "No, they can't. So you might as well tell me about your defenses." "It will save lives." Elena shook her head. "I won't betray my people. But I will say this. You have no idea what you're up against." Cathfor's eyes glowed with anger. "We'll see about that." As the guards took Elena back to her cell, she thought about the conversation. The Zephyrians were making a huge mistake. They thought they understood human military organization, but they didn't. They were about to attack with 5,000 ships, thinking they would face only small patrol fleets. They were going to be very surprised when they met the real human military. The invasion was coming, and the aliens still didn't understand what they were really fighting. They thought they had seen human strength, but they had only seen the tip of the iceberg. Elena smiled in her cell. Soon, the Zephyrians would learn the difference between human scouts and human soldiers. It would be a lesson they would never forget. The Zephyrian invasion fleet dropped out of hyperspace near the human colony world of New Terra. 5,000 ships spread across space like a metal cloud, blocking out the stars. Supreme Admiral Vexter stood on his bridge, confident that this overwhelming force would crush human resistance once and for all. "Begin the attack," he ordered. "Show these primitives the true power of the Empire." But as the first wave of ships approached the planet, something unexpected happened. Hidden weapons platforms suddenly appeared from behind asteroids and space debris. Missiles launched from concealed positions all around the system. Colonel Alex Wright watched the enemy fleet from his command bunker deep underground on New Terra. He had been preparing for this invasion for months. The early warning from Commander Morrison's patrol had given them time to set up defenses. "Sir, the enemy is taking heavy casualties," reported Major Sarah Thompson from her position at the tactical display. "Our hidden platforms are hitting them hard." "Good," Alex said, "but this is just the beginning. They'll adapt quickly." "Tony, are the evacuation routes clear?" Lieutenant Commander Tony Clark nodded. "All civilians are in the deep shelters. The resistance cells are in position." Alex looked at the display showing the enemy fleet. Even with their surprise attack, the humans were still outnumbered 50-1. But they had advantages the aliens didn't expect. The first Zephyrian landing ships reached the planet's surface. They expected to find defenseless cities and cowering humans. Instead, they found empty buildings and booby traps. Every street corner became a kill zone. Every building hid human soldiers with advanced weapons. Captain Maria Santos led one of the evacuation teams through the underground tunnels. Her job was to get civilians to safety while the military fought the invaders. But she wasn't just running away. "Team 3, this is Maria," she spoke into her radio. "The aliens just entered Sector 7. The trap is ready." "Copy that, Maria. Triggering the charges now." A explosion could be felt through the rock walls of the tunnel. Above them, an entire city block collapsed on the alien soldiers. It was a harsh welcome to human warfare. Meanwhile, her husband Nick Santos was flying one of the few remaining human fighters in the asteroid belt around the planet. His job was to hit the enemy supply ships and then disappear before they could catch him. "This is Nick to all fighter squadrons," he said over the com. "Enemy supply convoy approaching from the north. Let's give them a warm welcome." The 6 human fighters swooped down on the alien convoy like hunting birds. They fired precise shots at the engines and fuel tanks of the supply ships. Within minutes, the convoy was destroyed. "Nice work, everyone," Nick said. "Now let's get out of here before their escorts arrive." The fighters vanished into the asteroid field, using the rocks for cover. The alien escort ships arrived to find only burning wreckage and no sign of the attackers. On the surface, Admiral Kethfer was leading the ground invasion personally. He had expected an easy victory, but every step forward cost him soldiers. The humans fought from hidden positions, struck without warning, and disappeared before he could respond. "Sir," one of his officers reported, "we've taken the capital city." "Excellent," Kethfer said. "How many casualties?" 3,000 dead, sir. 5,000 wounded." Kethfer's satisfaction disappeared. 3,000 to take one city? "The humans fight differently than anyone we've encountered before, sir. They don't hold positions. They attack and retreat, attack and retreat. We never know where they'll strike next." "Cowards," Kethfer growled. "They don't fight with honor." "No, sir. But they fight effectively." The invasion continued for weeks. The Zephyrians captured territory, but they paid a terrible price for every mile. The humans used the planet's geography against them, turning forests into maze-like battlefields and cities into death traps. Then the human reinforcements arrived. Admiral Patricia Hayes brought 200 ships from the core systems. It wasn't a huge fleet compared to the Zephyrian invasion force, but these were professional military vessels with experienced crews. This is Admiral Hayes to all human forces, she announced over the comm. The cavalry has arrived. Time to show these invaders what real soldiers can do. Her tactical officer, Commander Luke Johnson, was already planning the counterattack. Ma'am, the enemy has spread their forces across the entire planet. They're trying to hold too much territory, with too few soldiers. Classic mistake, Patricia? Said, Janet, what's our intelligence on their command structure? Colonel Janet Miller, the fleet's intelligence chief, pulled up the tactical display. They're using centralized command, ma'am. All orders come from their flagship in orbit. If we can disrupt their communications, their ground forces will be confused and isolated. Patricia smiled. Luke, prepare the fleet for orbital assault. Janet, I want you to coordinate with our ground forces. It's time to teach these aliens about combined operations. The human counterattack began at dawn. While Patricia's ships engaged the Zephyrian fleet in orbit, General Paul Anderson led the ground forces in a coordinated assault on the invaders' positions. The aliens found themselves caught between two forces. The human ships above attacked their orbital support, while the human soldiers below struck at their supply lines and communication centers. Sir, an aide reported to Admiral Kethvar, we're losing contact with half our ground forces. The humans are jamming our communications. How? Is that possible? Kethvar demanded. Their technology is inferior to ours. Maybe their technology is different, not inferior, the aide suggested carefully. Kethvar was about to respond when explosions rocked his command center. Human soldiers had infiltrated the building and were attacking from inside. Impossible, he muttered. How did they get past our defenses? The answer came from Captain Maria Santos, who appeared in the doorway with a squad of human soldiers. We didn't go past your defenses, she said. We went under them. These tunnels have been here for months. The battle for New Terra turned into a disaster for the Zephyrians. They had come expecting an easy victory against a primitive species. Instead, they found themselves fighting an enemy that used every advantage of terrain, technology, and tactics. 3 months of fighting, the Zephyrians controlled less territory than when they started. They had lost over 1,000 ships and tens of thousands of soldiers. The humans, meanwhile, seemed to grow stronger with each battle. Supreme Admiral Vexter received the reports from New Terra with growing concern. His mighty invasion force was being torn apart by what he thought were colonial militias and border guards. Sir, Intelligence Chief Mordek said carefully, perhaps we should reconsider our intelligence about human military strength. What do? You mean? The forces we're fighting. They're too organized, too skilled to be just colonial defenses. And they keep mentioning something about their main fleet still being en route. Vexter's blood turned cold. Their main fleet? You mean there are more of them? I'm afraid so, sir. Much more. For the first time since the war began, Supreme Admiral Vexter felt something he hadn't experienced in decades. Fear. If these were just the human border guards and colonial militias, what would their real military be like? He was about to find out. Commander Ashley Davis sat across from the captured Zephyrian officer in the interrogation room. The alien's scales were dulled with exhaustion, and his yellow eyes showed defeat. Next to Ashley, analysts Robert Kim and Michelle Foster took notes on everything the prisoner said. Tell me about your fleet organization, Ashley said calmly. How many ships does your empire have? The Zephyrian officer, whose name was Captain Zelnar, looked up wearily. Why should I tell you anything? You? Humans fight without honor. You hide in shadows and strike from behind. We fight to win, Ashley replied, just like you do. The difference is we're better at it. Zelnar made a sound that might have been bitter laughter. Better? You use tricks and deception. When our main battle fleets arrive, your tricks won't. Save you? Robert Kim leaned forward. Main battle fleets? How many ships are coming? Thousands more, Zelmar said. What you've seen is nothing compared to what's coming. Ashley and her team exchanged glances. They had been analyzing captured Zephyrian communications and were starting to understand something important about their enemy. Captain, Ashley said, I think there's something you don't understand about us. What's that? The forces that have been defeating you, they're not our main military either. Zelmar's eyes widened. What do you mean? I mean the ships you've been fighting, the soldiers who've been beating you. They're our border patrol and colonial defense forces. Our real military hasn't arrived yet. The alien captain stared at her in disbelief. Impossible. You're lying. Michelle Foster pulled up a data pad. Captain, what do you think the population of human space is? I don't know. A few million? Maybe. 10 million? Try 47 billion, Michelle said. Across 600 star systems. Zelmar's mouth fell open. That's impossible. Our intelligence said humans were a small, primitive species. Your intelligence was wrong, Ashley said. Dead wrong. Meanwhile, on the Zephyrian flagship, Dr. Elena Rodriguez was being brought to Supreme Admiral Vexther's private office. The alien leader looked older than when she had first seen him. The war was taking its toll. Sit down, human, Vexther said, but his voice lacked its earlier arrogance. Elena sat and waited. She had been planning this conversation for weeks. Your people have been more difficult than expected, Vexther admitted. But surely you must see that resistance is futile. We have 5,000 ships. Had, Elena corrected. You had 5,000 ships. How many do you have now? Vexther's eyes flashed with anger, but he didn't answer. They both knew he had lost nearly half his fleet. I want to make you an offer, Elena said. Call off this invasion. Withdraw your forces. Go back to your own space and never return. In exchange for what? In exchange for your lives. Vexther laughed, but it sounded forced. You're hardly in a position to make threats, prisoner. Elena smiled. Am I? Let me ask you something. What do you think you've been fighting all this time? Your military forces, obviously. No, Elena said. You've been fighting our advanced scouts, our colonial defense forces, our border patrol. You know what we call the forces you've been fighting? Vexther leaned forward despite himself. We call them weekend warriors, part-time soldiers, citizens who train a few hours a week in case of emergency. The alien's face went pale. You're lying. Am I? Haven't you wondered why these primitive humans keep mentioning that their main fleet is still coming? Why they keep talking about primary battle groups and core system defense forces? Vexther said nothing, but Elena could see the fear growing in his eyes. Let me explain something to you, Elena continued. The United Earth Naval Command has been preparing for this war for 50 years. We have battle fleets that make your invasion force look like a patrol squadron. We have weapons you can't imagine and tactics your strategists have never seen. If that's true, why haven't they arrived yet? Because they're still mobilizing. Do you know how long it takes to coordinate the movement of 50,000 ships? How about planning the logistics for 1 million soldiers? Vexther's hands were shaking now. 50,000 ships? That's just the first wave, Elena said casually. The real Earth Defense Force has been building for decades. Every human world has shipyards. Every human city has military academies. We've been preparing for a war like this since we first left our home planet. The Supreme Admiral stood up abruptly and walked to the window. Outside, he could see the stars, but they didn't look as friendly as they once had. You're trying to frighten me, he said. I'm trying to save your life, Elena replied, and the lives of your soldiers. At that moment, an aide burst into the room. Sir, urgent message from our deep space sensors. What is it? We're detecting massive energy signatures from the direction of human space. Thousands of ships, sir. Maybe tens of thousands. Vexter felt his world collapse around him. Show me. The aide activated a holographic display. It showed a three-dimensional map of local space. From the direction of human territory, a massive fleet was approaching. The sensor readings were almost unbelievable. How many ships? Vexter whispered. We estimate at least 30,000, sir. And they're still coming. Elena stood up. That would be Admiral Jonathan Pierce with the Third Fleet. He's probably wondering why you're taking so long to surrender. As if summoned by her words, the communication system activated. A human voice filled the room. This is Admiral Pierce of the United Earth Naval Command, commanding the 3rd and 5th Battle Groups. Zephyrian forces, you are ordered to surrender immediately. You have engaged our forward reconnaissance units and colonial defense forces. Our primary battle fleets are now arriving. You have 1 hour to respond. The message was accompanied by detailed sensor data showing the approaching human forces. Ships larger than anything in the Zephyrian fleet, weapons platforms that dwarfed their most powerful vessels, and fighter squadrons that numbered in the thousands. Vexter sank into his chair. This is impossible. How can one species have so many ships? Easy, Elena said. We're not one species anymore. We're a civilization. Humans and the dozen other species who have joined us. We've been building this fleet for 3 generations, preparing for the day when someone would try to conquer us. Why didn't you use this fleet from the beginning? Because we hoped you would be reasonable. We hoped you would realize that attacking us was a mistake and withdraw. We gave you every chance to avoid this. Vexter looked at the sensor displays again. The approaching human fleet was massive beyond comprehension. His invasion force, which had seemed so powerful when it left Zephyrian space, was nothing compared to what was coming. What do you want? He asked quietly. Immediate withdrawal from all human space. Reparations for the damage you've caused. And a guarantee that this will never happen again. And if I refuse? Elena looked at him with something. That might have been pity. Then you'll find out what happens when humans stop playing games and start fighting for real. The communication system crackled to life again. Zephyrian fleet, this is Admiral Pierce. You now have 55 minutes to respond. I suggest you use them wisely. Vexter closed his eyes. His mighty empire, which had conquered dozens of worlds, was about to be crushed by a species he had thought was primitive. The worst part was, he was beginning to understand that the humans had been holding back. They had been giving him chances to surrender, and he had been too proud to take them. Now, it might be too late. Supreme Admiral Vexter called an emergency meeting with his surviving fleet commanders. The great conference room of the Dominion's wrath, once filled with confident voices planning conquest, now held only worried whispers and fearful glances. Gentlemen, Vexter began, his voice heavy with defeat. We face a choice. Surrender or face complete destruction. Admiral Kethvar, his scales still bearing scars from the ground fighting on New Terra, spoke first. Sir, surely we can negotiate. We still have over 2,000 ships. Look at the displays, Vexter said, pointing to the tactical screens. The approaching human fleet has 30,000 ships. And according to our prisoner, this is only their first response force. General Thaksin studied the sensor readings. Sir, their ships are larger than ours. Their weapons signatures are off the charts. If even half of this data is accurate, we're facing a force that could destroy our entire empire. The humans have been playing with us, Intelligence Chief Mordek said quietly. Everything we've fought so far has been a test. They've been studying. U.S., learning our tactics, preparing for this moment. Outside the conference room, the human fleet was arriving in waves. Admiral Helen Crawford commanded the first battle group from her flagship, the Titan's Hammer. Her fleet alone was larger than the original Zephyrian invasion force. "Ma'am," her communications officer reported, "we're receiving surrender requests from several alien ships." "Hold position," Helen ordered. "Let them sweat a little longer. Admiral Pierce wants to handle the negotiations personally." Admiral Richard Stone's second battle group took position on the other side of the alien fleet. His ships were the newest in the human fleet, equipped with weapons that the Zephyrians had never seen before. "Admiral Stone to all ships," he announced. "Form a perimeter around the alien fleet. No one gets out without permission." The Zephyrians found themselves surrounded by a force that dwarfed their own. Everywhere they looked, human ships appeared. Massive battleships, sleek destroyers, and carriers launching thousands of fighters that Vice Admiral Karen White, known throughout the human fleet for her tactical genius, studied the alien formation from her command ship. "They're trying to bunch up for protection," she observed. "Classic defensive formation. It won't help them." Commander Jack Thompson, piloting the experimental dreadnought Earthshaker, received special orders from Admiral Pierce. "Jack, I want you to demonstrate our new precision weapons. Disable their flagship's weapons, but don't destroy it." "Copy that, sir." One surgical strike coming up. The Earthshaker moved forward, its massive bulk dwarfing even the largest Zephyrian ships. Its weapons charged with a sound that vibrated through space itself. On the Dominion's wrath, Vexter watched in horror as the human dreadnought approached. "All weapons, target that ship." "Sir, our weapons are powering up, but ... double quotes, the Earthshaker fired once. A beam of pure energy struck the Zephyrian flagship with surgical precision. Every weapon on the ship was destroyed, but the ship itself remained intact. The crew was unharmed, but completely helpless. "Impossible," Vexter whispered. "They could have destroyed us completely, but they chose not to." Admiral Pierce's voice filled the bridge. "Supreme Admiral Vexter, this is Admiral Pierce. We have demonstrated that we can destroy your fleet at will. We choose not to because we are not conquerors. We are defenders. You attacked us. We did not attack you." Vexter activated his communication system. "Admiral Pierce, we surrender, completely and unconditionally." "I'm glad to hear that. But before we discuss terms, I want you to understand something. The forces you have been fighting for the past months were not our military. They were our border patrol, our colonial defense forces, and our civilian militia." "I know," Vexter said quietly. "We learned that too late. You attacked what we consider our children and grandparents," Pierce continued. "Our weekend warriors and part-time soldiers, and they beat you. Imagine what our professional military would have done." The communication was broadcast to every ship in both fleets. The human crews listened with pride, while the Zephyrians listened with growing shame. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, now freed from her cell, stood beside Admiral Pierce on his bridge. "Admiral, I think they understand now." "I hope so," Pierce replied, "because this message is going out to every species in the galaxy." He activated the fleet-wide communication system. "This is Admiral Pierce of the United Earth Naval Command, to all ships and all species listening to this transmission. The Zephyrian Empire attacked human space unprovoked. They were defeated by our reserve forces and local militias. Let this be a lesson to anyone who thinks humanity is weak or divided." The message was recorded and transmitted across the galaxy. Within hours, every spacefaring civilization would know what had happened here. On New Terra, Colonel Alex Wright received the news of the surrender. His forces had been fighting for months, and now it was over. Major Sarah Thompson joined him on the observation deck of their command bunker. "Hard to believe it's finished," she said. "Is it?" Alex asked. "This was just one empire. There are others out there." "Then they'll learn the same lesson," Sarah replied. "Don't mess with humans." The peace negotiations took place aboard Admiral Pierce's flagship. Dr. Elena Rodriguez served as the translator and cultural advisor. She had spent months studying the Zephyrians and understood their psychology better than anyone. "The first term is simple," Admiral Pierce announced to the Zephyrian delegation. "Complete withdrawal from all human space, immediately." Supreme Admiral Vexter nodded. "Agreed." "Second, reparations for the damage caused to our colonies and the families of our casualties." "How much?" Vexter asked. Admiral Pierce named a pool, figure that made the alien's eyes widen. It was enormous, but not impossible for the Empire to pay. "Third, and most important," Pierce continued, "you will send a message to every species in the galaxy. You will tell them exactly what happened here. You will explain that you attacked what you thought was the human military, but was actually just our local defense forces." Vexter's pride rebelled against this demand. "You want us to broadcast our humiliation?" "I want you to broadcast the truth," Pierce said firmly. "Other species need to know that attacking humanity is a mistake. Your shame might save lives." "Doctor." Elena Rodriguez leaned forward. "Admiral Vexter, let me explain something about human nature. We don't want to conquer anyone. We don't want to rule the galaxy. We just want to be left alone to live our lives and explore the stars. But if you force us to fight, we will fight with everything we have." "I understand that now," Vexter said. "We thought you were weak because you didn't immediately attack us with your full force. We gave you chances to retreat because we hoped you would be wise enough to take them," Elena explained. "We prefer peace to war, but we're very, very good at war when we have to be." The negotiations continued for hours. In the end, the Zephyrians agreed to all human demands. They would withdraw, pay reparations, and most importantly, spread the word about what really happened. As the alien fleet prepared to leave human space, Supreme Admiral Vexter requested one final conversation with Admiral Pierce. "Admiral, May? I ask you something?" "Of course." "How long have humans been preparing for a war like this?" Pierce smiled. "Since the day we first looked up at the stars and wondered if we were alone. Every human generation has asked the same question. What if someone out there wants to hurt us? So we prepared. We built ships, trained soldiers, and developed tactics, just in case. And if we had not attacked, if we had come in peace, then you would have found the most welcoming species in the galaxy. Humans love making new friends. We would have shared our technology, our culture, our friendship. We would have invited you to join our alliance." Vexter felt a deep sadness. "We chose the wrong path." "Yes," Pierce agreed, "but it's not too late to choose a better one. The galaxy is big enough for all of us if we can learn to live in peace." The Zephyrian fleet jumped to hyperspace, heading back to their home territory. They carried with them a message that would spread across the galaxy. Humanity was not to be trifled with. 6 months later, the message had reached every corner of known space. The recording of Admiral Pierce's final statement played on countless worlds. To all species listening to this transmission, the human race desires peace and friendship with all sentient beings. We will trade with you, learn from you, and share the wonders of the universe with you. But if you come to our worlds with violence and conquest in your hearts, you will face the same fate as the Zephyrian Empire. What they fought was not our army. It was our children playing war games. Our real military has not yet begun to fight." The message ended with footage of the massive human fleet that had forced the Zephyrian surrender. 30,000 ships, and the narrator's voice explaining that this was only a small fraction of humanity's total military strength. On Earth, in the headquarters of the United Earth Naval Command, Admiral Pierce met with his staff to discuss the aftermath of the war. "Sir," his aide reported, "we're receiving diplomatic requests from 47 different species. They all want to establish peaceful relations with humanity." Pierce smiled. "Good. That was the point. Sometimes you have to show strength to achieve peace." Dr. Elena Rodriguez, now serving as humanity's chief xenological advisor, added her thoughts. "The Zephyrians did us."
The night was quiet at Arecibo Observatory. Most of the staff had gone home except for Dr. Alan Carter. He stayed late most nights, eyes fixed on his computer screen, searching the stars for something unusual. Alan was 52 years old, with gray hair at his temples and wrinkles around his eyes from years of staring at screens and telescope data. He sipped cold coffee and rubbed his tired eyes. The computer suddenly beeped. Alan looked at the screen and sat up straight. The signal pattern was unlike anything he had seen before. It wasn't random noise. It had structure, rhythm, and purpose. Alan's hands shook as he picked up his phone. "Patricia, you need to see this now," he said when Dr. Patricia Walsh answered. Patricia arrived 30 minutes later. She had been working at the observatory for 20 years. If anyone could confirm what Alan found, it was her. "It's coming from the direction of Alpha Centauri," Alan explained, as Patricia looked at the data. "But the signal characteristics suggest it's not actually from the star itself." Patricia's eyes widened. "This is artificial. Someone sent this." For the next 3 days, they worked without much sleep. Other scientists joined them. They ran the signal through every analysis program they had. Finally, they broke the code. "It's a message," Patricia said to the room full of tired scientists. "And it's not friendly." The message was simple: submit or perish. Within hours, government officials arrived at Arecibo. The scientists explained that the signal came from what appeared to be a massive fleet of ships using Alpha Centauri to hide their approach. Based on the signal strength and movement patterns, the fleet would reach Earth in 6 months. 1 week later, the United Nations called an emergency meeting. Leaders from every nation gathered in New York. The room buzzed with fear and angry voices. General Susan Miller stood at the podium. She was the head of Earth's newly formed Unified Defense Command. For 10 minutes, she explained Earth's military capabilities compared to what they could determine about the alien fleet. "The truth is," she concluded, "we are outmatched. Their technology appears to be at least 3 centuries ahead of ours. Their ships number in the hundreds. We have detected weapon systems that could destroy our major cities from orbit without the aliens ever needing to land." The room fell silent. Then the shouting began. Some leaders wanted to prepare for war anyway. Others suggested immediate surrender to save lives. A few proposed trying to hide Earth's civilization by shutting down all power and technology. In the middle of the chaos, a man stood up from one of the middle rows. He wasn't shouting. He simply raised his hand and waited to be noticed. It took several minutes before the room quieted enough for him to speak. "My name is Jack Nelson," he said. His voice was calm but carried throughout the room. Jack was 63 years old with a plain face that was easy to forget. He had worked as a diplomat for 40 years, solving conflicts that others thought impossible. "I propose we send them only one warning," Jack said. The Secretary General frowned. "Mr. Nelson, did you not hear General Miller? We cannot win a military conflict with these aliens." "I didn't say anything about military action," Jack replied. "I said we should send them a warning, just one." "And what good would that do?" asked the Russian president. Jack walked to the front of the room. "May I?" he asked, gesturing to the podium. General Miller stepped aside. "Throughout human history," Jack began, "we have faced enemies who seemed unbeatable. Empires with better weapons, more soldiers, and greater resources. Yet time and again the invaders lost, not because the defenders were stronger, but because they underestimated human determination and creativity." He looked around the room. "These aliens believe we will either surrender or fight in a way they understand. Either option leads to our defeat, so we do neither. Then what do we do? Asked the Chinese premier. We send them one warning. Not a threat, not a plea, just a simple statement that Earth has never been successfully conquered, and they have one chance to reconsider. Some people laughed. Others shook their heads. And then? Asked the Secretary General. Then we prepare, Jack said. Not for a conventional war, but for something the aliens cannot predict or understand. For the next hour, Jack explained his plan. It wasn't about matching the aliens' firepower. It was about psychology, about making them doubt their assumptions about humans. By the end of his speech, the room was quiet again, but not from fear. People were thinking, considering, seeing possibilities they hadn't before. This is insane, the British Prime Minister finally said. But it might be our only option. The vote was nearly unanimous. Earth would send one warning, along with a carefully selected history of human conflict. Every invasion that failed. Every time a smaller force defeated a larger one through clever tactics and sheer determination. 2 days later, Earth's most powerful radio telescopes sent the message toward the approaching fleet. It was simple. We acknowledge your arrival. Be advised. Earth has never been successfully conquered. We extend one opportunity to reconsider. The response came 3 weeks later. It was broadcast on every frequency, overriding all radio and television signals worldwide. The alien face on screens everywhere looked vaguely reptilian, with purple-gray skin and yellow eyes with vertical pupils. I am Admiral Zorax of the Galactic Dominion, the alien said in perfect English. Your warning is noted and dismissed. We have conquered hundreds of worlds. Your primitive weapons cannot harm our ships. Your soldiers cannot match our warriors bred for combat and victory. Prepare for our arrival. Those who surrender will live as servants. Those who resist will perish. The broadcast ended. Across the world, people looked at each other in fear and confusion. But in the United Nations building, Jack Nelson smiled slightly. They responded exactly as I expected, he told the Emergency Council. They're arrogant. They think they understand us. That's their first mistake. And what's their second mistake? Asked General Miller. They threatened us publicly, Jack said. Now every human on Earth knows what's coming, and humans are never more dangerous than when backed into a corner. The preparations began immediately, but they weren't what the Dominion would expect. Earth was getting ready for a war unlike any fought before, one that would teach the Galactic Dominion why their single warning should have been heeded. In the months that followed, Earth changed. The old fights between nations stopped. For the first time in human history, everyone worked together for survival. Jack Nelson led a special team with people from every major country. They worked in an underground base near Geneva. Their job wasn't to build weapons, but to understand the enemy. The Dominion expects us to either surrender or fight in a way they understand, Jack explained to his team. We will do neither. Scientists and military experts studied the alien message and the brief video of Admiral Zorax. They noticed small details, how the alien held himself, the tone of his voice, the look in his yellow eyes. They're confident, because they've never failed, said Mia Johnson, a behavior expert who studied animal predators before joining Jack's team. But that's also a weakness. They don't know how to handle surprises. Meanwhile, regular people prepared in their own ways. They didn't build bunkers or stockpile food as much as learn new skills. Farmers learned basic combat. Soldiers studied farming. Computer programmers practiced living in the wilderness. Everyone learned to adapt. General Miller met with Jack every week. She wasn't fully convinced by his plan. We should be building better weapons, she argued during one meeting. Something that can at least hurt their ships? We are, Jack replied calmly. But not the kind you're thinking of. He showed her to a large room where scientists worked with strange equipment. This is Dr. Olivia Hernandez, Jack said, introducing a woman in her 40s with short black hair. She used to study viruses. Now she's creating something special for our visitors. A biological weapon? General Miller asked. Not exactly, Olivia said. From the brief video, we analyzed the alien skin and breathing patterns. We're developing compounds that won't harm them, but will make their environmental systems malfunction. Imagine their suits suddenly smelling like rotting eggs or their ship air feeling too thick to breathe properly. General Miller looked confused. That won't stop them. It's not meant to stop them, Jack explained. It's meant to confuse them, to make them waste time and resources trying to fix problems they don't understand. Similar work happened around the world. In South Korea, engineers developed tiny drones that looked like local insects. In Brazil, chemists created fog that would interfere with alien sensors but appear natural. In Nigeria, communication experts found ways to send messages that seemed like background radiation. None of these would win a direct fight, but together, they formed a strategy based on confusion, misdirection, and psychological impact. As the II months passed, the alien fleet grew closer. Astronomers tracked their approach. They would enter Earth's solar system in less than 2 weeks. World leaders gathered again at the United Nations. The mood was different now. Less panic, more determination. Are we ready? The Secretary General asked. Jack stood up. No, he said honestly, but neither are they. On screens around the room, images appeared showing Earth's preparations. Not just military bases and new weapons, but ordinary people training, communities organizing, factories being repurposed to make unusual items rather than traditional weapons. The Dominion thinks they know what conquering a planet looks like, Jack continued. They expect resistance at the beginning, then surrender when people realize they can't win. That's what has happened on hundreds of worlds. He walked to the center of the room. But humans don't follow that pattern. Throughout our history, occupation forces have learned that controlling territory isn't the same as winning. The American Revolution, the Vietnamese resistance, the Afghan fighters, all faced enemies with superior technology and numbers. All prevailed through determination and adaptability. Jack pointed to a map showing Earth. We won't meet their ships in space. We can't win that battle. We will let them land. We will let them think they're winning. And then, he smiled slightly, then we will teach them why our warning should have been heeded. 3 days later, the first Dominion ships entered the solar system. They moved past Neptune, then Uranus, then Saturn, their engines glowing purple against the blackness of space. Commander Kate Rogers watched from the International Space Station. Earth had decided not to evacuate the station. Instead, it became an observation post. They're not being cautious, Kate reported. They're moving in a standard formation, not expecting any resistance until they reach Earth. Jack received the report in the underground base. Good, he said. They're following their usual playbook. Earth's military forces took hidden positions. They didn't deploy in the open where they would be easy targets. Instead, they merged with civilian populations and natural environments. Special teams prepared to implement Jack's unusual strategies. Each had a specific task designed not to defeat the aliens directly, but to create confusion, waste their time, and gather information about their weaknesses. Ordinary people waited too. Some were scared, but most felt a strange calm. They had done all they could to prepare. Now they would face whatever came. Admiral Zorak stood on the bridge of his flagship as they passed Mars. On his view screen, Earth grew larger, a blue jewel against the darkness. Any response to our final demand for surrender? He asked his communication officer. None, Admiral, the officer replied. They have been silent since our first exchange. Zorax made a sound that might have been a laugh. As expected, their primitive defenses are probably aiming at us now for all the good it will do them. He turned to his war council. Begin the standard conquest pattern. Eliminate their military bases and power infrastructure first. Avoid major population centers for now. We need workers for the resource extraction. The Dominion ships moved into position around Earth. Their weapons powered up, glowing with energy that could destroy cities. On Earth, Jack Nelson looked up at the night sky. He could see the alien ships as bright dots moving between the stars. And so it begins, he said quietly. The first attacks came at dawn. Bright beams of energy shot from the Dominion ships, targeting military bases, power plants, and communication centers across the globe. But many of the targets were already empty or contained decoys. The real preparations were elsewhere, hidden, and waiting. The Galactic Dominion had arrived. They had received Earth's one warning. They had ignored it. They were about to learn why that was a mistake. The first week of the invasion went exactly as Admiral Zorax planned. His ships destroyed military bases, power plants, and communication towers across the planet. His ground troops landed and secured key locations. Humans died by the thousands. But something was wrong. They aren't surrendering, Zorax said to his second-in-command. 7 days and no official surrender from any major nation. They are primitive, Admiral, his officer replied. Perhaps they don't understand the concept of formal surrender. Zorax looked at the holographic map showing their progress. They controlled landing zones on every continent, but the areas under their control were small, like islands in a vast ocean of resistance. Send more troops to these population centers, he ordered, pointing to several cities. They will surrender when they see our full might. On Earth, things looked very different. William Porter had been a construction worker in Detroit before the invasion. Now he led 30 people hiding in the city's old subway tunnels. They weren't soldiers. They were teachers, nurses, factory workers, and students. Remember the plan? Will told his group. We don't try to kill them. We watch them, learn their patterns, and report back. That night they observed an alien patrol moving through the empty streets. The aliens moved in perfect formation, their armor glowing slightly in the dark. Will took careful notes about their movements, the equipment they carried, and how they communicated with each other. Similar groups watched the aliens all over the world. They noticed things. The aliens always followed the same patrol routes. They used the same signals. They never changed their tactics unless directly ordered to. All this information went back to Jack Nelson and his team in the underground base. They're predictable, Jack told General Miller as they studied the reports. They've conquered so many worlds the same way that they don't know how to adapt. That's something at least, Miller replied. But they're still killing our people and destroying our cities. Not for long, Jack said. Phase 2 begins tonight. Across the world, resistance groups received new instructions. Now that they understood the alien patterns, it was time to disrupt them. In Chicago, Nurse Samantha Brown led her team to a water treatment plant the aliens had secured. They didn't attack the aliens directly. Instead, they added a special chemical to the water intake. A compound Dr. Olivia Hernandez had developed based on their observations of alien biology. The chemical wouldn't harm the aliens. It would just make them itchy. Very, very itchy. In Rio de Janeiro, former taxi driver Carlos Mendez and his group released thousands of small drones designed to look like local insects. The drones didn't have weapons. They just made noises near alien communication devices, noises that exactly matched their transmission frequencies. In Nairobi, teacher Grace Okafor led her team to spread a special pollen near alien sensors. The pollen didn't damage the sensors. It just made them less accurate, showing movements where there were none and missing actual movements nearby. None of these actions would defeat the Dominion, but together, they created problems the aliens had never faced before. The next morning, Admiral Zorax received disturbing reports. Troops were experiencing skin irritations that their medical systems couldn't identify. Communications were filled with strange interference. Sensors were malfunctioning across multiple landing zones. It must be the planet's environment, his science officer suggested. Perhaps something in the atmosphere we didn't detect initially. Fix it, Zorax ordered. I want those problems solved by tomorrow. But the next day brought new issues. Alien vehicles developed engine problems when they passed through certain areas. Patrol routes that had been safe suddenly had sinkholes appear. Food supplies developed strange tastes that scanners couldn't identify as harmful, but troops refused to eat. Zorax was furious. These can't all be natural phenomena, he said. The humans are behind this somehow. He ordered harsher measures. More troops, more weapons, more severe punishments for humans who resisted. This played directly into Jack Nelson's strategy. "They're responding exactly as we predicted," he told his team. "They only know one way to solve problems: use more force. That makes them use more resources, more troops, more energy." Linda Guzman had been a park ranger before the invasion. Now she used her knowledge of the Rocky Mountains to hide people and supplies in places the aliens couldn't find. When the aliens increased patrols in her area, she didn't fight them. She just made the environment more difficult to navigate. Strange fog appeared in valleys. Paths that were clear one day had fallen trees the next. Wildlife behaved oddly near alien camps, keeping them awake with constant noises. The aliens blamed these problems on Earth's primitive and hostile environment. They didn't realize these effects were carefully created by humans who knew their land intimately. 3 months into the invasion, the Dominion controlled only 15% of Earth's surface, far less than their typical conquest timeline predicted. Their troops were tired, confused, and increasingly nervous. They had expected an easy victory over primitives. Instead, they faced problems they couldn't solve or even properly identify. In his flagship above Earth, Admiral Zorax faced the first real challenge of his career. "We need to change tactics," he announced to his war council. "Clearly, these humans are more cunning than we anticipated." "What do you suggest, Admiral?" asked his second-in-command. "We've been too gentle," Zorax replied. "We tried to preserve the population and infrastructure for later use. That ends now. We will show them the full power of the Dominion." He ordered orbital strikes on major cities. His ships positioned themselves and prepared to fire weapons that could turn cities to ash in seconds. In the underground base, Jack Nelson received the warning from Kate Rogers on the space station. "They're moving their ships into bombardment formation," Kate reported. "They're going to start destroying cities." Jack smiled, surprising General Miller. "Why are you smiling?" she asked. "They're about to kill millions of people." "No," Jack said. "They're about to discover why our warning should have been taken seriously." He turned to a young man sitting at a computer. "Steve, is your team ready?" Steve Gardner had been developing video games before the invasion. Now he led a team of hackers who had been studying alien computer systems for months. "We're ready," Steve said. "The moment they activate their main weapon systems, we'll have our opening." The Dominion ships moved into position. Admiral Zorax gave the order to fire. Nothing happened. He repeated the order, more forcefully this time. Still nothing. On every ship in the fleet, control systems stopped responding. Emergency lights came on. Backup systems activated, then failed as well. "What is happening?" Zorax demanded. No one had an answer. The Dominion had never considered that a primitive species could hack into their advanced systems. They had never needed the kinds of security that would prevent such attacks. It was their most critical mistake. The humans hadn't tried to build weapons that could destroy Dominion ships. They had found a way to turn the ship's own systems against them. Phase 3 of Earth's defense had begun. The Dominion fleet hung in space, dead in the sky. For 6 hours, not a single alien ship could fire its weapons or change position. Admiral Zorax ordered his engineers to fix the problem, but they couldn't even explain what had happened. On Earth, Steve Gardner and his team worked tirelessly in their hidden base beneath an old library in Seattle. They had spent months studying the signals from alien ships, looking for patterns and weaknesses. Now their work was paying off. "We won't have control of their systems for long," Steve told Jack Nelson over a secure line. "Maybe another 12 hours before they find a way to lock us out." "That's enough time," Jack replied. "Download everything. You can. Every bit of their technology, their star maps, their communication protocols. This was the real purpose of their strategy. Earth couldn't win a direct fight against the Dominion's advanced technology, but they could steal it, all across the planet. Hidden teams like Steve's broke into different parts of the alien network. They weren't trying to destroy it, they were learning from it. Dr. Olivia Hernandez led a team targeting the aliens' medical systems. "Their biology is fascinating," she told her colleagues as data poured in. "Look at how they've engineered their soldiers to survive in different environments." In London, engineer Frank Wilson studied the aliens' power systems. "They're using a form of energy we've theorized about but never managed to create," he said excitedly. "This could change everything." The aliens eventually regained control of their ships, but the damage was done. Humans now had access to centuries of advanced knowledge. Admiral Zorax was furious. "How could primitives possibly hack our systems?" he demanded. "It should be impossible." His chief engineer looked nervous. "They found a weakness we never considered, Admiral. Our systems were designed to resist attacks from technology similar to ours. These humans used methods so old and primitive that our security didn't recognize them as threats." Zorax slammed his fist on the control panel. "Enough excuses. Land more troops, take their cities by force, show no mercy." More alien ships descended. Troops poured out, armed with weapons that could disintegrate a human with a single shot. They advanced on major cities around the world, expecting to crush the remaining resistance. But the cities were mostly empty. The humans weren't gathering in large groups to be easy targets. They had scattered into smaller communities, hiding in places the aliens struggled to search effectively. In the forests outside Atlanta, retired school principal George Howard led his community in constant movement. They never stayed in one place for more than a day. They used the knowledge gained from observing alien patrols to avoid detection. "They rely too much on their technology," George explained to his group. "They don't know how to track without their sensors. They don't understand our environment." When alien patrols came close, George's people didn't run or fight. They used tricks developed by hunters and wilderness guides. They covered themselves in mud to hide their body heat from alien sensors. They moved with the wind to prevent their scent from being detected. They used the natural sounds of the forest to mask their movements. Similar groups existed everywhere. In Australia's outback, in Siberia's vast wilderness, in the Amazon rainforest, in the mountains of Afghanistan, places where humans had learned to survive harsh conditions for thousands of years, became the perfect hiding spots against alien invaders. The Dominion troops grew frustrated. They were warriors bred for direct combat, not for tracking elusive enemies through unfamiliar terrain. They began making mistakes. 4 months into the invasion, the situation had become a stalemate. The Dominion controlled major landing zones, but little else. They couldn't find enough humans to capture for labor. They couldn't secure the resources they had come to extract. In the underground base near Geneva, Jack Nelson met with leaders from around the world. The room was filled with screens showing the current situation. "Phase 4 begins today," Jack announced. "Now we start pushing them back." Until this point, humans had mostly avoided direct confrontation. They had focused on gathering information, disrupting alien operations, and stealing their technology. Now they would use everything they had learned. Linda Guzman's team in the Rocky Mountains was one of the first to implement the new phase. They had studied the alien patrol schedules until they knew exactly when and where each group would be. They had identified the weaknesses in alien armor, the spots where different pieces connected, the sensors they relied on for vision in Earth's atmosphere. They didn't use conventional weapons. They used specially designed darts that delivered compounds Dr. Hernandez had developed. The compounds didn't kill the aliens. They temporarily disabled their armor's systems or confused their senses. Within an hour, an entire alien patrol was stumbling around blindly in a mountain valley, their communications down, their weapons non-functional. Similar attacks happened across the globe. The humans never engaged in extended battles. They struck quickly, disabled the enemy, and disappeared before reinforcements arrived. The most significant blow came from Steve Gardner's team. Using what they had learned from the alien systems, they developed a virus that spread through the Dominion's communication network. The virus didn't destroy anything, it just changed small, almost unnoticeable things. Supply requests were altered so troops received the wrong equipment. Patrol schedules shifted by minutes or hours. Sensor readings showed threats that weren't there and missed ones that were. The Dominion's greatest advantage, their highly organized, centralized command structure, became their greatest weakness. Admiral Zorax struggled to understand what was happening. Reports from his ground commanders made less sense each day. Some claimed their troops were being attacked by invisible enemies. Others reported equipment malfunctions that engineering couldn't explain. Many simply stopped reporting at all. We're losing control, his second-in-command finally admitted. The humans don't fight like any species we've encountered before. They don't try to win battles. They make it impossible for us to fight effectively at all. Zorax made a decision he had never made before. Pull back, he ordered. Bring all troops to secure landing zones. We need to regroup and develop a new strategy. But even as the order went out, he wondered if it was already too late. The Dominion had arrived expecting an easy conquest of a primitive world. Instead, they found themselves caught in a web they couldn't see or understand. For the first time in his career, Admiral Zorax felt something he had never experienced before: fear. 6 months into the invasion, the Dominion forces were in retreat. They abandoned their forward positions and gathered in heavily defended landing zones. Their once perfect formations were broken. Their once flawless equipment was failing. Their once fearless soldiers were jumping at shadows. Admiral Zorax paced on the bridge of his flagship. The situation was beyond anything in his experience. In hundreds of conquests, the Dominion had never faced a defeat. Yet here they were, being driven back by primitives who shouldn't have been able to scratch their armor. I need reinforcements, he decided. We will request a second fleet from the homeworld. His communication officer looked nervous. Admiral, I've been trying to send that request for 3 days. Our long-range transmissions aren't getting through. Zorax froze. What do you mean they aren't getting through? Are they being blocked? No, sir, they're being changed. Every message we send is reaching the homeworld, but not with the content we intended. On Earth, in a repurposed radio station in Kenya, Abdi Hassan and his team monitored the alien communications. Abdi had been a computer scientist specializing in communication encryption. Now he used those skills to intercept and alter every message the Dominion tried to send home. They're asking for help again, Abdi told Jack Nelson over a secure line. We've changed the message to report that the situation is challenging but under control. Good, Jack replied. We need more time. The time Jack referred to was for human scientists to understand and reproduce the aliens' technology. In hidden labs around the world, teams worked day and night, combining stolen alien knowledge with human creativity. In Sydney, marine biologist Emma Taylor led a team studying the aliens' environmental adaptation systems. Their suits are designed to let them breathe and move in any atmosphere, she explained. We can modify this technology to help us explore the deepest parts of our oceans. In Moscow, physicist Dmitry Petrov studied their energy systems. Their power sources are incredibly efficient, he reported. If we can reproduce this, we could solve Earth's energy problems forever. In Cairo, Dr. Fatima Nasser studied their medical technology. Their tissue regeneration techniques could revolutionize medicine, she said excitedly. We could cure diseases that have always been fatal. Each discovery was shared globally. Old rivalries between nations were forgotten as humans united against a common enemy. Every breakthrough was immediately put to use, both to fight the Dominion and to improve life on Earth. Admiral Zorax finally received a response from the Dominion homeworld. It wasn't what he expected. Request denied, the message said. Explain failure. Zorax was stunned. In his entire career, he had never failed. The Dominion didn't tolerate failure. This is a misunderstanding, he replied immediately. The situation is complex but manageable. We do not need reinforcements. We will complete the conquest as planned. He turned to his war council. We have no choice. We must launch an all-out assault on their remaining strongholds. Commit every ship, every soldier, every weapon we have. His officers looked doubtful. Admiral, one dared to speak. Our troops are exhausted. Our equipment is malfunctioning. Perhaps we should consider a strategic withdrawal to regroup. Withdraw in the face of primitives? Zorax snarled. The Dominion does not retreat. We will crush these humans and take their world as we have taken hundreds before it. But even as he said the words, a part of him knew they weren't true. Something had changed. The Dominion forces were losing, not because the humans were stronger, but because they were different, unpredictable, creative, and impossibly adaptive. In the underground base, Jack Nelson received word of the Dominion's planned final assault. "They're getting desperate," he told General Miller. "They're going to throw everything they have at us." "Are we ready?" Miller asked. Jack smiled. "More than ready." The final battle began at dawn. Dominion ships descended from orbit, weapons blazing. Troops poured out in massive numbers, advancing toward human positions with a ferocity born of fear and desperation. But the humans were waiting. Using modified alien technology combined with their own innovations, they had prepared defenses the Dominion had never encountered before. In Chicago, Samantha Brown led her team in deploying environmental disruptors that made the aliens' breathing systems fail. In Rio, Carlos Mendez activated signal jammers that broke the aliens' communication networks. In Nairobi, Grace Okafor triggered devices that disabled the aliens' weapons by matching and reversing their energy frequencies. These weren't weapons of destruction. They were weapons of disruption, designed to render the enemy's technology useless without killing them. The Dominion troops faltered, then broke. What was supposed to be a glorious final victory became a chaotic retreat. Ships tried to return to orbit but found their navigation systems compromised. Ground forces tried to fall back to landing zones but became lost and separated. From the space station, Commander Kate Rogers watched Dominion ships colliding with each other as they tried to escape Earth's atmosphere. "They're in complete disarray," she reported. "They've lost all coordination." Jack Nelson received the news with quiet satisfaction. "It's time for the final message," he said. Using the communication systems they had reverse-engineered from the aliens, humans broadcast a message not just to the Dominion fleet, but to their homeworld and every planet in their empire. The face that appeared on Admiral Zorax's screen was Jack Nelson's. "Admiral," Jack said calmly, "when you arrived, we gave you one warning. You chose to ignore it. Now you understand why that was a mistake." Jack continued, "While you've been fighting, here we've been learning about the Dominion. Your empire is vast but stretched thin. Your leadership is rigid and unforgiving of failure. Your technology is advanced but designed with only one approach to warfare." Zorax stared at the screen in disbelief. "How did you access our Imperial network? This is impossible." 6 months ago it would have been impossible, Jack agreed. "But humans learn quickly. We've been broadcasting the story of your defeat to every world in your empire. Many are already beginning to question whether the Dominion is as invincible as they've been told." Jack's expression remained calm, but firm. "You have a choice now. Leave our solar system and never return, or be destroyed by the very technology you brought to conquer us." The retreat began within hours. The once mighty Dominion fleet limped away from Earth, their ships damaged, their soldiers demoralized, their mission an unprecedented failure. 1 year after the invasion began, the last alien ship disappeared from Earth's sensors. Humanity had survived, but they were no longer the same. With the knowledge gained from the Dominion, humans began advancing at an incredible rate. New energy sources, new medical treatments, new ways of growing food and cleaning the environment. 2 years later, Earth launched its first faster-than-light ship, built using reverse-engineered Dominion technology. 5 years later, human ambassadors made contact with other species that had suffered under Dominion rule. Alliances formed. Knowledge was shared. A new interstellar community began to grow, one based on cooperation rather than conquest. And throughout the galaxy, a story spread. The story of a small blue planet that had given just one warning before bringing a galactic empire to its knees. No other empire ever attempted to invade Earth again. They didn't need to be warned twice.